Hello, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chats. Today it is, it's the last day of the month. It's March 31st. Tomorrow is April Fool's Day. And so Brittany's not here today, but she will eventually see this video. Her birthday is April 1st. So she was born on April Fool's Day. How fun is that? So anyway, if you get a chance, respond to the email to her and say happy birthday tomorrow when she sends out that link. She should probably send it out today. But with that, I'd like to welcome Amy Schlotthauer today. She is talking about A Company of One, a book by Paul Jarvis. And I will go on mute and I'll let her take it over. Welcome, Amy.
Thanks, Matt. So for those of you who've been here before and for those of you who are new, we usually drop in the chat an introduction. So if you want to go ahead and kind of keep up that practice, name your organization and kind of what you do in a nutshell. That is always really helpful. I know for me personally, to get to know more of you. So as Matt said, I'm going to talk about A Company of One today by Paul Jarvis. I get a lot of emails about, hey, can I pick your brain about being a consultant? And this book is always one that I recommend to people. And I guess I recommend it so much that I get in charge of doing one of these conversations about it. So for the first half hour, I do have some slides to just kind of bring up some concepts from the book. And then I'm hoping we can have use some of the questions from the slides to have a good discussion afterwards. So I am just curious, I purposely designed this for, if you didn't read the book or you're not familiar with the book, you can still participate in the discussion, but I am curious if you just want to give one of the emoji reactions, like if you did read the book. I'm kind of curious how many of you have read the book. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. That is helpful context. All right, so if you bear with me, I'm going to just get my slides loaded. All right. All right. So the reason that I really loved this book is because I read it when I first became a consultant. And I think, it has a lot of practical advice for kind of getting started, some really good discussion questions. Each chapter kind of ends with begin to think about and has a few bullet point questions. So I thought it was a really nice mix of this like core, tangible, practical checklist type of things to operating a business, but also some deeper philosophical questions that I think when I reread it in anticipation of this discussion really stood out to me more, having been a consultant for 4 years. So I just say that because I do think I don't reread a lot of books, but I did feel like I had different things jump out for me personally, reading it at a different stage of being a consultant. So that was kind of interesting to me. And I would just encourage you, if you did like it this time, to maybe revisit it in the future at some point. So the book is divided into these kind of 3 distinct sections of begin, define, and maintain. And, I kind of interpreted that as like, here are some things when you're kind of ramping up, thinking about becoming a business or a company of one to think about. The define section kind of resonated with me as, okay, maybe you've been operating for a little bit and you want to refine or kind of automate some of the processes that he talks about. And certainly we've talked about in this independent consultant TIG before. And then the maintain is kind of more these things around like, you've been in business for a while, you are really kind of starting to, how can we do things better? So if you wouldn't mind in the chat, just drop in one word, begin, define, or maintain, how you kind of see yourself today in terms of like your consultant journey. And there's no right or wrong answer. And personally, I kind of feel like these should be like overlapping diagrams, but for the purposes of a book review, I'm going to keep them separate. So certainly we have a lot of begin, some define, maintain, begin, define, maintain. That's great. So thanks for dropping that in. So for the next couple of minutes, I'm just going to go through, there are so many concepts in this book, and I also created a one-pager for you all that kind of summarizes all of this that I'll drop in the chat when I'm done. But I just wanted to pick out 3 or 4 things from each section that really resonated with me and kind of pose some questions for you to think about in your own business that are kind of derivative from the book. All right. So one of the first things that I really loved about this book is the concept of challenging how we kind of assume and what we assume growth means. So one of the things when I first told my parents I was going to quit my really nice job and become a consultant, I was a little bit nervous. I thought they would think that was a dumb idea. And my dad actually was super excited. He was like, oh, you can like grow this company and sell it for millions of dollars. And I was kind of like, okay, let's start with baby steps. So one of the things that I kind of immediately started thinking about is, well, I'm not sure that that's how I necessarily define growth. And I think this book, one of the reasons I like it is because it kind of runs counter to a lot of the traditional business books where you're trying to grow. And so I have this cartoon here of this like never ending upward trajectory. And so the book really challenges us to think about, well, how do we define growth and what is that going to mean for our business? For some of us, that's going to be growing in terms of staff. For some of this might mean leveling up our skill set or focusing on automated processes so we can focus on better instead of more. And then, we're all evaluators. And so I like the idea of using the tools of the evaluator to think about for our businesses, what are our metrics of success and our definitions of growth. I like the start small, define growth, and keep learning. So he really encourages you to play with business ideas. Another thing that is brought up in this section is, so we have these traditional assumptions of growth in our culture and, really a lot of them fueled by capitalism. What happens when growth conflicts with your values? So I have this cartoon here, how we're taught to measure success has a lot wrapped up in these core assumptions of growth. And one of the things that, I challenged myself when I went into consulting was to have this like lower pie chart. So yeah, I'm going to have this business, but I also like value a lot of things outside of my business. And I value my mental health. I value my physical health. And I know that a lot of business advice really asks you to hone in on your values. And this book is no different. It's really asking you to consider your values and how does that align or maybe conflict with your definitions of growth, and how do you have to sort of calibrate both of those things. Then the third thing I wanted to bring up from this section is how you define enough. And he says, determining what is enough is different for everyone. Enough is the antithesis of growth. And I liked this kind of visualization because I think it emphasizes some things in the book about, really honing in on what are the right things for your business and how you define enough. And so I think one of the things that we're pretty familiar with as consultants is you kind of go through this exercise when you're first starting of, okay, this is the amount of money I need to bring in to pay my bills, pay my mortgage, pay my rent, support my family, allow me to take a vacation, or whatever, you have factored into that equation. Something he challenges us in this book to think about is we're very comfortable setting that like lower threshold. I just need to make at least this much money. But what is that upper threshold that is still going to allow you to operate your business in the way that you want to, given your definitions of growth and your values? So at some point, you are not going to be able to do this like sustaining one person show if you're just going after more and more and more. Your definition of growth is going to have to adjust. And I think he brings up some like $900 million income or some crazy amount of money. And, Amazon is not run by one person, or even though they may have some company of one tendencies. So that was a new concept for me to think about, kind of thinking of these lower and upper bounds of what is enough in terms of business. So again, that section of begin really has some really core questions to ask ourselves. And I think using our like evaluator minds to turn those in on ourselves and kind of think about these things in terms of growth, values, and what we define as quote unquote enough. The next section is define. And some of the things, and this is where I feel like some of the things in the define section really also are pertinent in the begin section. And one of those things is purpose. So he says, real underlying purpose is the lens through which you filter all your business decisions. And so the question posed is, what is your company's true north? And I don't know about all of you, but one of the things that really held me back from starting my consultant business is very representative in this visualization. So I thought I needed to have like this whole perfect thing mapped out, and I know all of these things. And no matter who told me, I just really did not believe that, oh, you just need a general direction, or you just need to do the next right thing. And I think one of those things is figuring out what your company's true north is. So who are you going to work with? What services are you going to offer? And another kind of connection to this like sense of purpose and knowing your purpose, I think as the business owner, as time goes on, something that I think that I had a erroneous conception of is if I start my own business and do this work that I love, I'm always going to be motivated to work, and I'm always going to want to work. And I have definitely experienced like lulls in motivation. And so if you can connect back to that purpose statement and like really write it down for yourself, that can be a tool to kind of help you through those lulls that are inevitably going to come in motivation. Another idea from this section is allowing your business to have some aspect of your own personality or quirks, or in other words, you're selling your way of thinking. So what makes your business distinct? I mean, we are all in this room, virtual room, evaluators, but we all come at evaluation from different lights or different interpretations in some ways. And, I think doing those introductions really hones in on that. Like a lot of us are in education or STEM. Some of us are in public health. Some of us really focus on program evaluation. Some of us focus on developmental evaluation. So there's like kind of that aspect of your business, but also how are you bringing that personality through? That's something that I feel like I challenge myself to get better at as time goes on throughout my business, and kind of using my personality as a distinction of my business, for better or worse. And then another idea from this section is execution is the only valid currency in business. Share those ideas. And I share this kind of tongue-in-cheek sign that I found on the internet a lot of times because it is kind of funny, because this idea of Sharknado is ridiculous. I've never seen the movie, but I just think inherently it's dumb. And then when you look at it, it's like, raked in like $900 billion. There's some astronomical, there's like 4 spinoffs. So just, challenging yourself to get out there and share your ideas and how this is really, really crucial as a business owner. And one of the questions he poses is, what are you doing to position yourself as an authority in a given area? Sometimes in this space, we talk about like niching down, or what is your niche? And that's certainly one aspect of positioning yourself. But I also think it's just, sharing ideas in smaller ways, maybe on a social media post or responding to someone's Twitter question. Instead of thinking like this huge, big thing, oh, I need to be an authority, how can you start small in the idea of company of one and thinking about sharing your ideas and where you're going to share them? And then finally, he says, follow your passion is irresponsible business advice. And really, we need to be focusing on problem solving. One of my favorite comics is Liz Climo. She has these really cute little animals, and they're always like building on their uniqueness to help each other out. So, thinking about your business in terms of services is very common, I think, in evaluators. Like we say, oh, I do program evaluation. I can do strategic planning. I can do all of these like very evaluator sounding jargony words. But in reality, what problems are we helping our clients solve? Sometimes our clients are looking for these very jargony things if they need an evaluator for their grant. But in some clients, like evaluation is a total foreign concept. They don't even speak that language. So how can we think about our businesses in terms of the problems that we're helping clients solve? So the last section in the book is this maintain section. And so I just have a few ideas to share from that section. He says, trust in business has to be totally baked into every aspect of not only what you sell, but how you sell and support it. And the 3 components that he brings up about trust are confidence. So do your clients believe what you say? Competence, do they believe you have the skills to do the job? And then benevolence, do they feel that you are acting on their behalf? So how are we kind of incorporating those 3 aspects of trust in our interactions with our clients? How are you possibly kind of refining some of your interactions with clients as you go on to make improvements? Are you doing follow-ups with your clients after you're done with them? And by done with them, that sounds kind of bad. Completed the project that they hired you for. And then a lot of the aspects of relationships come in this maintain section. And again, relationships are important throughout. It's just where in the book it happens to come up. And one aspect of relationships is, good relationships are the foundation to a successful business, especially for companies of one. So you want to be doing a lot of relationship building activities with clients and potential clients. One of my favorite TV shows is the marvelous, I don't even know what it's called, Mrs. Maisel. And this is a picture from there. And she is an aspiring comic. And she's kind of thrown together with Susie, who becomes, her manager, and Mrs. Maisel is her first client. And as the seasons of the show go on, Susie does everything and goes above and beyond for Mrs. Maisel. And I'm not saying that's necessarily what we want to do for our clients at the expense of our mental health or anything, but how can we add in different touches? I mentioned following up and bringing in processes for routine follow-ups. They had in the book an example of, I believe it was a software company where when someone bought the software package, the owner sent out a little bit of chocolate and a thank you. Just these kind of and this is a good way to think about the intersection of your personality and quirks. And then another kind of smaller thing is he poses this question, who do I know who could benefit from connecting this person? So if a client approaches you in something that's outside your scope of work or your services, you can still offer a service in connecting them to another person in the independent consulting TIG or another person in your network. That is still a great relationship building practice. And then finally, he talks about maintaining relationships with peers. And I thought this was perfect for this group. And his quote is, remember, just because you might work for yourself doesn't mean you have to work by yourself. And so this aspect of building relationships, what are you doing to build relationships among your peers? And I have this quote, being there for other people when things go right is as important as being there when things go wrong. I love celebrating things and celebrating news. So when I see someone like bragging about themselves on Twitter or LinkedIn, or sharing their new product or service, I retweet it and say, congratulations. For a while, I had these really cool gold Celebrate glasses. They were like these paper glasses in the party section from Target. I was mailing those to fellow consultants that I knew had just like some great thing happen to them. Either they nailed like an amazing client or they wrapped up a really great project. And, you know, participating in this TIG is a really small way to build relationships among our peers. And if you want to, you can certainly email me or follow me on Twitter or friend me or whatever it's called. I'm not very good on LinkedIn. I welcome that, and I am friends with many of you already. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen.